Some time ago, somewhere, I'm not sure where exactly, there lived an old woman. One day, a friend of hers, a writer from a faraway western country, came for a visit. Each time the friend visited, the village wise woman would teach him a new way of looking at the world. The wise woman told her friend, "Most of Western society thinks that we should believe only what we see. However, in reality, the mind works the other way around, meaning we only see what we believe." "But how can this be?" "I will show you shortly." Soon, two villagers came to the village wise woman at different times to ask her for guidance and information about the location of horses. She told each villager the horses were in a valley near the village, but told one of them that the herd had 8 horses and the other that it had 24. The village wise woman was talking about the same herd in the same valley. At the end of the day, the villagers returned with what they captured. The first villager, since he was told there were only 8 horses, believed it to be true. For why would the village wise woman lie? He expected to find 8 horses, so when he found 8, he stopped looking. The second villager believed that there were 24 horses. After all, why would the village wise woman lie? She expected to find 24 horses and kept looking until she found 24 horses. The village wise woman's friend was puzzled with the result and asked her to elaborate on what seemed to be a manipulative trick. She smiled and said, "We can only see what we think about and imagine. What our mind believes is possible and true, it tends to find and experience in the world. However, in reality and in nature, there is an abundance of possibilities. If we believe and recognize that there is abundance of possibilities, then we can experience the world as an offering of the abundance of possibilities."
There we are. Well, when you think about seeing or experiencing the world through a creative lens, what pops into your mind's eye? Perhaps a Picasso, or a Dali, or a Warhol, perhaps. Or perhaps even a Purvis Young comes to mind. Someone who sees the world fairly differently than we do. You know, artists often experience the world in ways that are fairly different than the way most of us see the world. If I ask you to consider exploring the world through a creative lens, is your response, "I can't because I'm not an artist"? Have you put a box around what creativity looks like and who gets to express it? What might keep you from embracing a creative point of view? What might prevent you from living and moving through the world as someone who identifies as a creative person? Does that at all seem daunting? Or does it feel maybe liberating? Maybe you'd be concerned that you couldn't function in reality if you viewed the world too differently from other regular people. I've got a secret for you. You know, you probably are a creative person. Almost all of us put on a creative lens at one time or another. Maybe it's a new idea about how to cook a recipe you've cooked 100 times, or maybe how to place food on a plate so your kids will enjoy it and actually maybe eat it. Or maybe that you found new and different ways to repair a toilet or a sink. Or perhaps you've discovered some new way to get your child to do what you want him to do. Creativity is not always manifest on a canvas or with clay. Creativity often is manifest in the way that we choose to live and move and have our being in the world. American writer and philosopher Robert Grudem, in his book, The Grace of Great Things, Creativity and Innovation, wrote, "We can no more have ideas than ideas can have us. Indeed, the creative process might be simplified if we stopped searching for ideas and simply made room within us for them to visit. If anything controls or dominates at the moment of inspiration, it's not the mind, but it's the idea, or rather the sudden articulated power of our inward energies. New ideas capture and possess the mind that births them. They colonize it and renew its laws. The expansion of an idea within us thus is an expansion of us, ourselves, our inner self. Grudem suggests that we have to be willing to expand our receptivity, to be ready to make a place for new ideas. We must be ready to be changed by a new idea. Our perspective on whatever we're doing as we have this idea will likely change, but more importantly, we as an individual are likely to change. And I know for many of us, change can be a little scary and perhaps a little daunting. I'm not a carpenter, and yet I decided back in 1985 to build this structure, a barn-shaped shed in my backyard. I thought, you know, I have a hammer and nails and some wood, I'm all set. So I went to Home Depot, told the salesperson I wanted to build a shed and I pointed at this demo, and he said, great, he's happy to help. Gave me a 5-page, it was printed like it was off, like right off the printer, of instructions, just words, how to build your shed. And he said, next day, all this wood would be dropped in my driveway and I'd be set to go. So I decided I'd buy a circular saw, got some nails, I looked for the hammers. I just bought the cheapest wooden hammer I could find, and I thought, I am ready to go. And so, when the wood arrived, I began cutting and nailing according to the diagrams. I broke 3 hammers in the process. I hammered an embarrassing number of nails in sideways. And the structure that was sort of manifesting itself did not look entirely like what you see before you. Fortunately for me, the person living behind me was a carpenter. I'd never met him. We never talked before that day. But I am sure he felt somewhat bemused as he watched me try to build the shed. Finally, he couldn't take it any longer, and he came over to tell me I had to start over. And I needed new tools. And I looked at him like, you're crazy. What are you talking about? I need to start over, new tools. I mean, I'm going to school for a master's degree in psychology. I should be able to do this. The thing is, I couldn't see through his eyes. I couldn't put on a creative lens at the project I was trying to create. I saw it through the eyes of a person who's, in a master's program and thought I could do just about anything. And reality is I needed him to put a creative lens on me. I didn't want to break any more hammers. And I needed really to understand what tools would be properly, what tools I really needed. He told me I needed metal-handled hammers that carpenters used because it wouldn't break. He introduced me to a tool I'd never heard of before. Do you know what that is? It is a nail puller. I'd never heard of a nail puller before in my life. I had heard of a leveler, but I didn't have one at the time, so I needed a leveler too. So you might ask, okay, so why am I telling you this story? In order to be effective in addressing something that I'd never done before, I had to put on a creative lens. I had to be willing to expand my understanding of myself and my abilities to make room for new ideas, new talents, new tools, a new point of view, in order to be able to complete the task, to build a shed that actually would be, a shed. I believe that all of us have had to go through this version of a process in school, in work, in relationships. We've had to put on a creative lens to see something differently in order to be effective, to address a problem, to improve a relationship. Intrinsically within us, we have a lens. It's based on our own personal experiences, our prejudices, what other people have told us, what we've been taught. But there's limitations with that. And hopefully, as you've gone through enough of this, enough times, you've realized, my lens is not enough. It needs to be expanded. I need to see the world more creatively if I'm going to be more effective. There is so much to be gained from putting on a creative lens. And I know, believe me, I know that sometimes we need someone else to even let us know that we need to put on a creative lens. Sometimes, like I did with the carpenter, but think about being in a relationship with someone who is very different from you, who has different experiences, a different life that you've never experienced before. You need to they need to help you to put on that lens so that you even know you need to when you're in a relationship with them. Karen Herring, the UU minister who wrote the book Trusting Change, believes not only that we need to hopefully get creativity in our interactions with other people, but that we need to keep ourselves primed for that, to practice being creative in order to deal with the changes that it takes to go through, changing our lens, opening up our lens, opening up ourselves. She suggests that we need to allow our creativity to stretch its legs, run around for fun, take off in a flight of fancy from time to time so that we can be prepared, open, allowing our creativity to play in the world from time to time hones our ability to be more resilient to change. And we all know change happens. It has to happen if we are going to adapt to an ever-changing world and different relationships and being in a community with other people. One way to tap into your creativity is the simple exercise we did with the kaleidoscope. When you see the infinite number of patterns moving before your eyes, perhaps you're reminded there is more than one way to experience the world. Even a new way to do a task. Or maybe even that you can create something, a piece of art or music or paint, found objects, words on a page. And we're going to try another way to metaphorically put on a creative lens. All right? I'm going to really need your help with this, folks. How many of you have your cell phone with you? How many of you have a cell phone? Okay. If you don't have a cell phone with you, sit next to somebody who has a cell phone with them, okay? Raise your hand again if you have a cell phone. Okay, raise your hand. Okay, good, good. All right. Now, what I want you to do, I want to take out your cell phone and open it up to YouTube. And what I want you to do is, in the little search bar, put in some kind of music that you like. I don't care. Rock, if you have a particular group that you like, or, you know, classical music, whatever you want. Put that in there. Okay. And then push search. And whatever pops up, first one, don't think about it, just whatever pops up at the top, that's going to be yours. All right. Now click on it so that it actually begins to play for a moment. But now we have to get through the commercial. I'm sorry, but there's a commercial and you got to put through the commercial. And skip the ad. All right. Now, push pause. All right, push pause. Okay. Push pause. There. Pause. Okay. Now you're all keyed up. You got your music? All right, everybody got their music. All right. Now, when I initially envisioned this, I envisioned it as being a silent rave. What that means is that each of you would listen to music by yourself and dance. Dance to your favorite music without worrying about what anybody else is doing. So I'm going to try that, and you might have to turn your volume down a little bit. But so what I want you to do, when you're, everybody ready? Everybody's got their music queued up? Okay? All right. Push play. Turn down the music till you can hear it, and then dance. You can stand or sit, however you want, and just allow yourself to All right, you can sit down, or just turn off your music if you like. How often do you do something like that?
All the time.
Oh, you do it all the time? Okay.
Sorry, Reverend Tom.
I don't know. We go with the flow here. Some people, but okay, when the neighbors aren't looking. This is.
I'm caring about the neighbors, Bob.
What I'm trying to suggest here is that you can experiment with ways to play creatively, and it doesn't have to be anything magical or special, or it could just be listening to some music and whether people are around or not and just going with it. This stretches you, it opens you, it allows your creative spirit to grow. Now, I know that some of you may feel a little self-conscious, and that's okay. Not these people behind me, but other people feel that way. But it allows you to feel different in that moment, to experience an opening of the self, a breaking open of the self that can allow more within. You can feel sometimes more energized, perhaps happier, just open to new possibilities. You know, there are lots of things you can do. Daydream, doodle, creative play. You could pretend like you're a cat, or have a tea party with your child to exercise your creativity. Now that not only breaks you open and opens you, it strengthens your resilience to change. And I invite you to think about doing this regularly in your life. Without expectation. Don't think you're going to get anything out of it, because that's not what we're doing it for. We're doing it to open ourselves without producing anything. And it's easier to put on a creative lens when you've been doing this creative exercising from time to time. You know, you can see, it's like you can see the world differently. You can see a problem in the world, like, you know, tree canopy. I mean, who knows you were going to talk about tree canopy at the beginning of a process where you're talking about how hot Miami is. You have to open yourself up. Sometimes you have to open yourself up and share your point of view with others as well. And we're going to, as a matter of fact, next week, and I hope many of you come next week, we're going to do this. We're going to create together. I'm going to ask you to create 2 pieces of art that'll hang in this sanctuary. It'll be created by you, painted and collage and on a canvas, and you're going to create what it is that Unitarian Universalism means to you, the values, the principles, so that somebody who comes into this sanctuary will see that on our wall and they'll think, what is that? What does that mean? And you can say, well, this is what it means to me. Or they can say, I wonder what that means. Is that what this place is about? And maybe open them up in some way to what might be going on here in this church. That's right. Now, I had a couple of other exercises, but I will show them to you later, because we're going to have lunch here in a minute. I don't want to keep. So I'll tell you this. Seeing the world differently than we normally do takes day-to-day effort and intention. But the gifts and benefits of holding up a creative lens to the world are innumerable. So I invite you a few times a week, a few minutes a day, look through your kaleidoscope. Dance to music that only you can hear. Participate in some form of creative play and break yourself open to experience the world a little differently, to learn new ways of doing things, to embody the change that you seek for the world. My friends, I know that we're all capable of this. So go forth and be creative.